Hello everyone, Kiri here, and Happy New Year! I'm pretty sure this is my first discussion video of 2024, so I wanted to start off the new year with a bit of a fun one. Since I've revealed my ugly mugs, you heard me, mugs plural, there's two of me, don't ask. I've been looking through all my hundreds upon hundreds of video ideas, some being well thought out theories that are all ready to go, and others being throwaway thoughts that I decided to save for a rainy day. That's when I stumbled upon this old gem, which I've had on the back burner since around the time of the Way Big Predator video. So I think it's high time we discuss my theory on why I believe that Michael Morningstar, the energy vampire also known as Darkstar, is actually an Osmosian. Without further ado, let's get right into it. It's hero time! So to get us started, let's address the elephant in the room. And then throw a master ball at it and chuck that bitch in the PC box, because that fucker's a shiny. Why does anyone watch these videos? I know that Omniverse retconned Osmosians into simply being mutants, but for the sake of this theory, let's ignore the retcon of Omniverse and instead focus on the UAF era of the franchise, where Osmosians were not only introduced and made canon in the first place, but where Michael Morningstar himself was first introduced. So yes, for this video we are disregarding the whole thing with Cervantes and the Rooters. So while this video is technically already debunked by modern canon, this video will be framed from the perspective of analysing the canon pre-retcon, and what formerly existed as the in-universe canon. Besides, it's not like the retcon doesn't have massive flaws of its own already anyway. That makes sense? Okay, good. Let's get into it then. So to begin, I think it's important for us to establish who within the Ben 10 canon is confirmed to be an Osmosian, as then we can compare the powers of those individuals with those of Michael Morningstar and determine what similarities they share. Within the Ben 10 franchise, the canon Osmosian specimens are Kevin Ethan Levin, his father Devon Levin, his son Devlin Levin, or at least he would be within the context of the UAF era and the rules it established, and one of my personal favourite characters from the Ben 10 franchise as a whole, Aggregor. Now, let's start to compare these guys' abilities to those of Michael Morningstar, and let's see how it adds up, shall we? Michael Morningstar possesses the ability to absorb energy, power, mana, and seemingly life force. Interestingly, we have seen Osmosians throughout the Ben 10 franchise possess each of the same abilities. On top of that, let's acknowledge how Osmosians absorb matter, energy, and DNA into themselves. The Osmosian power of absorption is activated via physical contact from the user's hands. This rings true for both Kevin, Devon, and Aggregor, and likely Devlin as well, though we never actually saw him try to do it. How does Michael absorb energy from others? That's right, direct physical contact with his hands. But you might also remember that the reason Michael absorbs through his hands is because of the fact that there are mouths on his hands, and he uses those to absorb the energy. No other Osmosian has mouths on their hands, so does that disprove the idea of Michael being an Osmosian? Well, not entirely. Let's take a look at Aggregor. See anything unusual about his appearance when compared to the other Osmosians?
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you, I've got the horn!
That's right, he's got the horn. Aggregor has horns, something not seen in either Kevin, Devon, or Devlin. I've seen some people speculate that the horns of Osmosians may be growing as they reach adulthood or a certain specific age, but I doubt this explanation, as neither Kevin 11,000 or adult Devon possess the horns seen on Aggregor. So either he's way older than these two, or that's simply not how Osmosians work. What I think is much more likely is that Osmosians pass on certain mutations to their descendants. Let me use Kevin, Devon, and Devlin to explain this idea better. In the classic series, Kevin Levin was transformed into his original amalgam form, and we know that the ability to willingly transform into this state was passed on to Kevin's son, Devlin. If we assume that the reason Devlin can willingly transform into this hybrid state is because of his dad once being forcibly transformed into such a hybrid state, that would explain why neither Kevin or Devon have any unusual physical features like Aggregor does. Kevin's dad, Devon, was a quote-unquote pure Osmosian, with no DNA absorbed from other life forms. As such, when he had Kevin, there was no amalgamated DNA to pass on, and so Kevin came out pure as well. However, due to Kevin's body being mutated by the Omnitrix, his DNA was tampered with, and so he became impure as a result. Then, when he had Devlin, Devlin came out with the tampered DNA of his father, and thus was an impure Osmosian as well, with the ability to willingly activate the same mutation that his father once underwent. Perhaps in the same way, Aggregor's father or some other ancestor of his absorbed the DNA of an alien with horns, and thus that DNA was passed down to Aggregor, resulting in him naturally having a set of horns. This would also explain in-universe why Aggregor would know so much about the mutation process of Osmosians. He would obviously ask why he had horns and other Osmosians didn't, and perhaps it would be explained to him by one of his relatives how it all worked, which would lead him to begin his plans regarding the Andromeda 5 and the baby celestial sapient in the Forge of Creation. See? Now I'm coming up with theories of Aggregor's backstory. I'm that good. If Osmosians are capable of absorbing and altering their own DNA and can do this seemingly permanently under the right conditions, it makes sense that such DNA would pass on as normally as any other DNA when it comes to their descendants. All of this is to say that perhaps Michael is an Osmosian who had an ancestor that absorbed the DNA of an alien with mouths on its hands, and thus Michael ended up with such a trait as well. There is actually an alien in the Ben 10 franchise with something similar to Michael's mouth hands, and that is the Aashan. The Aashan have openings on their hands which they can use to not only expel water, but also absorb moisture from the air. If the Aashans have hand holes that can absorb moisture, perhaps the combination of Aashan DNA and another species' DNA was what resulted in the hand mouths that Michael has. Or perhaps just Aashan and Osmosian DNA themselves combining resulted in this particular adaptation. It wouldn't be too far-fetched to propose that Michael is partly descended from Aashans either, as do you know who else is aware of the Aashan?
My mom!
Aggregor. If Aggregor not only knew about the Aashan, but was also capable of flying to their homeworld to capture one, it stands to reason that other Osmosians likely know about them and could travel to their homeworld as well, perhaps meaning that one of them went and got on with a sexy local crustacean. With all of this said, I think that we already have some pretty darn compelling evidence to support the theory that Michael may well be an Osmosian. But there are a few more quick things that we need to go over, which I really think hits the nail in the coffin here. Michael Morningstar is one of the Plumber's kids, which, pre-retcon, constituted individuals who are hybrids of humans and other alien species. Manny, Helen, Pierce, Alan, all of whom are part human, part alien. By this logic, Michael having DNA of alien origins, go watch episode 1 by the way, isn't unusual at all. We've even seen that there are Osmosians within the Plumbers, as displayed by Devon, so it isn't as if Michael couldn't be related to another Osmosian who joined the ranks of the Plumbers. However, even if Michael was lying about being a plumber's kid, which, not gonna lie, I actually can't remember if he was lying or really was a plumber's kid, and it turned out he actually only stole the plumber tech that he owned and simply said it belonged to his family, we can actually still explain why this relates him to being an Osmosian. If he stole this tech, how did he manage to get it running, when surely it would have passwords, firewalls, and other such security measures that would prevent an outsider from using it? Well, which species in the Ben 10 franchise is known for being able to control technology simply by pumping absorbed energy into it? That's right, the Osmosians. So even if Michael wasn't a real plumber's kid, his use of the technology without issue still makes complete sense and helps lend into our Osmosian origins theory. We even see that Michael is capable of turning into a being entirely composed of the energy he absorbs, an ability that is similar in nature to how Osmosians can absorb and turn into other forms of matter. But now, the final thing I feel we need to address is Dark Star. What explanation do I have for this? Well, for this, let's pull out Kevin's material amalgam form, as well as the explanation for it. The reason Kevin wasn't able to transform back into his regular state while being in this form was due to the fact that his body's DNA was being interfered with by the Omnitrix. Once the Omnitrix was destroyed, Kevin's body returned to normal. If this indicates to us that outside sources can influence the form of other Osmosians, perhaps Michael is a similar case when he becomes Darkstar. Even as Darkstar, he is able to revert to his regular self by simply being in an environment rich enough with mana, meaning that Gwen defeating him and absorbing his mana was a permanent damage to his body, leaving him unable to change himself back unless he regathered the required mana necessary to do so. But with that, that's about all I have to say with this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, but to be honest, I really like this theory and I think it's pretty darn conclusive. But with that, let's move into our usual post-video rituals. Big thank you to our channel members, Minul Muir, Sharky, Hearn_TC, and Riverjoy. If you want to help keep the channel running, please consider becoming a channel member today. Now, let's move into last video's poll, where I asked you guys if you would rather have Mudkip, Chikorita, or Tepig as your starter Pokemon in a new Pokemon game. With 2,089 total votes, Mudkip unsurprisingly won with 74% of the total votes, Chikorita came last with only 10% of the votes, and Tepig got 16% of the votes, bringing it into second place. I would have chosen Chikorita. Honestly, Meganium is one of my favourite Pokemon because I just really like dinosaur-like creatures with flowers on them. I don't know, it's a weird thing I just find cool. Now then, let's give a shout out to everybody who correctly guessed that my choice was Chikorita. So, big shout out to Mad Doc Monkey, Thomas Bowers 5226, and Tyler Ferguson 3193. Congratulations for guessing that I love the little pear dinosaur. Now, let's move into this video's poll. Out of the following options, which Omnitrix gimmick would you want the most for your very own Omnitrix? Omni Kicks, Omni Enhancement, or Ultimates? Leave a comment below guessing which one you think I would want the most, and with that, I'll see you all next time. Adios, amigos.